Good evening. I call to order the Monroe Public Schools Board of Education work session. Today is Monday, January 26, 2026, and the time is 5:30 p.m. Jamie, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Heck.
Here.
Mr. Dinkins. Here. Mrs. Meyer.
Here.
Mr. Sabatini.
Here.
Mrs. Ross.
Here.
Mrs. Vincent.
Here.
Mrs. Williams. Here.
Can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. There are two cameras in use this evening, one focused on the Board of Education and another one that may be used during any public commentary or presentations. By participating in this meeting, you acknowledge that you may be captured on video. Thank you for your understanding and for joining us tonight. Next up is discussion items. Now turn it over to Superintendent Shaw.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Monday night here, and to any kids out there watching. Hopefully, we'll have school tomorrow. Just putting that out there. Get your homework done. So the first thing I want to share with you is we've worked up a preliminary thought pattern around our work sessions, and so that is in your packet for your preview. As you'll see tonight, we're going to be talking about credits, letter grades, GPA, CAs, truancy, and then student retention. And then we kind of went through all the way for the next 6 months for you to see. What you can see is that we've already pre-scheduled, obviously tonight, and then even then our next Monday, 2 weeks from tonight, that was already one that was kind of set aside. That one's already been pre-scheduled to be used. And so we put those in there. So then that would see that your April and your May and your June dates that were ones are protected dates. Those are available for use, but we're trying to move a lot of things into February, March. If you flip your paper over on the back, we wanted to also share with you down there towards the bottom where it says board meeting agenda items. So we put on here items like for these contracts that will be coming up. So METS, ATI, those will be coming to you in March as a discussionary item in new business. And the conversation there is you'll have a copy of the prior contract, and then at the discussionary time underneath new business, then we'll ask you, is there anything that you would like to see done inside those contracts? And the reason being is those contracts have already been pre-approved. Those contracts are ongoing contracts. And then once from there, then they go down to old business. You'll see that coming up here tomorrow night, we have the vocal and instrumental music is going to be on the agenda. And on there, and so that's already on the agenda for tomorrow night, but it'll be a spot where it's discussion. And it's not, sometimes you see the word discussion only. It'll be a discussion where upon if you desire to make a motion to move forward with the methodology on the allocation, we so can, or you can come back and say, hey, we want you to give us a motion for that, and it'll drop to old business. The idea is that if there's a topic inside here, okay, for example, tonight there may be one of these items that you guys as a collective group say, hey, we really want to see that into the board agenda to be so we can make movement on it. It would then be moved over to our next board meeting, not tomorrow, but the following one, to be put on new business as a discussionary item, or it could even be an action item. But the idea is that you could then begin to take action. Once we have that conversation in new business, it drops down to old. I'm asking the board that once something goes to old business, we get it addressed within 2 months. There's some form of action within 2 months of something going on the board agenda. So that way things don't sit on the board's agenda for months on hand. And because then the community members, because I believe, and this is just myself, is that community members would look at it like, wow, this item has been sitting there, but there's still no action. So the idea is this, is based off of our work session nights. If there's something you go, okay, we want to see this moved on, then move it over to new business so we can then, we got 2 months to make a formal motion or whatever needs to happen from there. So the Board of Education meetings are really that for action items and for things to get done. So are there questions on this? Obviously this work session list right here is subject to change based on things, other things coming up, but we know that these are items right here for certainty that have to be brought in front of you. So Are there any questions on some of that methodology that I've just shared?
Well, I would like to discuss a few things on the schedule. Some of the topics that we know are going to take an extensive period of time, I'm going to request that they be on a Monday and not on a Tuesday because it limits our time to be able to address them, and then we have to keep bringing them back. So that being said, the SEL PBIS discussion, I know the last time they came in and gave one, I know they had a lot of data to present. I know all that. So rather than have that on Tuesday, I'm going to request that that go on Monday, February 9th. And then we move the school calendar, which I doubt will have a long conversation, on to the Tuesday.
Yep. Which, that's not a problem. Understand that some of these topics too, for example, with the PBIS, when that's a great example for us to use, is they're not coming in with a presentation that night. We've got questions that you had asked in the past, so we'll talk about that stuff, but it's more getting into what's the purpose for it being on the agenda that the board members asked for it to be placed there, so the board then can have that conversation.
So we did ask for data to be presented after the
Yeah,
last
it's coming.
meeting, so we want that. But
Yeah.
I am requesting that SEL be moved to Monday, February 9th, and the calendars moved and they be swapped.
That's not hard to do. But that's the stuff, so we want to share that with you, that when Tom and I get together on Mondays and we go through, we'll continue to look at, but this was our first opportunity, though, to work through these materials.
Was there?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. The other thing that was, as a result of the last board meeting, was a request to put transportation onto the old business. And I see that we have bus purchase, but that is separate from the transportation portion of it, where we still have students on the bus for over 2 hours that I think need to be addressed because these buses are not going to be here in a timely fashion.
I don't have that in front of me, so no, that will stay there even when,
Yeah, we just don't have it on this new
no, it's not
business.
on this list. No, it's on our, we've already keeping it, it's already staying on our regular board agenda.
I didn't see it on there at,
It was the bus purchase that.
yeah.
We'll still have, though, the bus, because we know we still have to,
Yes, these should be on, these new business and old business items should be on our agenda, not
when-
just on here.
well, we're not gonna, but here's the thing, though, for example, if I put the Mets contract on there right now, I'm not ready to share anything with that.
But then what I'm suggesting is that the transportation portion
Yes.
of it, I would like that to be on the agenda and keep it on new business because I think the fact that these kids are being on the bus in this cold weather, we have not, I understand the bus purchase and I think that's a plan, but that doesn't help these kids right now.
And we also know that the bus, the future purchases is also gonna sit there, so it will stay underneath old business until it's fully adjusted there.
Not just the bus purchase, because there's two separate things.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's more generically, that discussion is transportation, but the primary objective would be bus purchase to reduce the amount of time the kids are on the
Yes.
bus.
Yeah, two different things.
I think those are tied together because I don't know if you can get their time on the bus reduced unless you purchase more buses.
I was hoping we would get some feedback from the ladies here on that when they came in and alerted us to that there would be a improvement plan or some kind of objective met that would say, hey, we looked at this and here are some things we can do or we can't do. I just would like
And
to
they
see
do
that.
already have that when the two new, if the board was to make that election tomorrow night to purchase 2 new buses, what that would, the direct impact that would have when those buses came in. So that is already done. So,
The other thing is on groups, I know that we talked about putting the community partnerships and mental health services. So am I to believe that that is not coming up until February 23rd?
correct.
And why is that coming later than some of the other stuff?
Well,
Like
today's
professional development
today's
is-
Monday, February 26th. Monday, the 9th is our next full time we have, so we have to do our budget amendment that night. We're going to get an SEL. Tuesday night, we're going to go over the calendar and then the half-day professional development because we have to do that work
Okay.
prior to doing any other work, so that becomes,
Okay.
that's,
Okay, I just
And-
had my list ready,
Yep.
so.
no, we wanted to, and we really need to honor the board when it came to the 26, 27 school calendar, because in the past, what would happen is the district would create the calendar with the teachers union, bring it forward to the board to approve. There's been conversation in this room around going from a half-day PD to a full-day PD. And because that is contractual, because of the cost investment, we have to make a decision in this room first before we would ever take anything to go create a calendar and then bring it in here going, hold on, we want to have a conversation around half-day, full-day calendar, PD.
Yeah, with the union.
Yep. So we'll work through this, if there's anything new, and then the other part being is, some of these items, board members have asked to have it on there, and then we'll always ask, okay, any information that we need to have, or what are we trying to solve there will be helpful, because sometimes we're not gonna create, a presentation around it, because I think sometimes it's more that board members wanna have a conversation there, and, which is perfectly acceptable, so.
So on that, I just want to make sure going forward, I know there's a couple avenues that we've looked at on how to get information and request information. I know that we request information at board meetings. I think once we requested a board meeting, we shouldn't have to go to another avenue to request it again. If we request it on the log, we shouldn't have to go to another way to request it again. So there's been a lot of information that's been requested
What I'm
for
asking-
some of these upcoming sessions. I did not respond back for a repeat of the same information. I just want to make sure that,
I think my
Yeah.
question becomes more is that, are we trying to get to information so that we can make a decision on something, or are we trying to get to information to understand?
no, it's to make a decision.
But not on every topic, is to make a decision on something?
So all I'm doing is presenting some of the information that I know we've already talked about previously. I'm just looking going forward. You know, we have a bunch of different places that the board requests information. You know, I'm just saying, I don't think we should have to do it multiple times. If we request it at a board meeting, is that a one and done? If it's on the blog, is it one and done? Is it at a work session, one and done?
Well, if we bring it up in a work session or a board meeting, then we can take and
Yep.
put that into the log.
So we'd have to relog it again.
No.
Well, no,
log it.
if it's already in the log, that's fine, but if it's not in the log and it comes up during a board or work session, we'll add it to the log so that we can track it to make sure that it's getting addressed.
So who's adding it to the log? The individual that asks or just asking?
It really should be if there's a particular question or something that you're trying to
I
address.
can add it to the log.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I don't mind. I just
yeah.
want to know.
you know, I can add it to the log, that's not a problem. But I think just, you know, make sure in the board or the meeting or the work session, you know, just maybe make notes so I can put it down that you want it added to the log.
Yeah. I try to keep track of everything that's asked at a board meeting as well, so. Not just from me,
Yeah.
but from other board members.
So that's all I had on work sessions and schedule. So on the next three items here, Mr. Sabadini, I know we put times on there. I'm gonna ask you to not honor those times. You'll see, like it says 30 minutes and so forth. There was once a time where you talked about, okay, we know how much time we should spend on topics and are watchful there. I don't want to make that, so see how it says right there, like 30 minutes allotted? It could go past, and we know that our Monday nights are supposed to be, so we're not gonna be putting times on here any longer. Okay, we just want, I know that you as a parliamentarian have talked about what's that scope right there, and can we, and staying focused. So tonight's focus for you, though, is on these next three items, is to bring to us position of clarity, and if you want a specific topic, example, credits, letter grades, GPA, and CA, make sure there's clarity. If there's something that, in that item that you want moved into a board meeting. I'm going to turn this part over to David, because I know that he's been the one sending a lot of the information out, and then we're going to go straight to questions by board members.
Sure. So there are, I guess, a plethora of topics that are up for discussion tonight. A lot of the information has been presented to you in a work session and also through board briefs. I personally would like to start with CA discussion. Everything is kind of lumped together unless someone would like to has a special request. Okay. So a little bit of history on the CA, and we do have Ms. Joseph and Mr. Polizzi here to correct me if I lead astray. 15, 16, 17 years ago, Monroe High School was failing students based on attendance. teachers had the ability that if students did not show up, there was no threshold or anything set in place, and if a student didn't show up for X number of days, that teacher would have the ability to pass or fail them if they didn't meet that teacher's standard. Monroe High School implemented a CA because they were told what you are doing goes against the mission merit curriculum that states that students should receive credit based on what they're able to demonstrate and not by whether or not they show up to school. Monroe High School came up with the idea to hold students accountable for attendance by establishing a set number of days at 10. If a student misses 10 days, they will be awarded a CA regardless of what passing score they earned, which is the equivalent to a B-. Yes, there is a appeals process in play for students who have met that certain threshold, and that involves students, parents, teachers coming together to make a decision. A lot of times there is maybe not a documented excusal for those absences, but something in that student's life that is factual and that is documented. Last year, the 24-25 school year, there were 17,165 grades issued to students. 7% of those, and we're talking the current sophomores to seniors who graduated, 7% of those were CAs. In a total, 1,304 CA grades were recorded. And those CA grades were all passing grades at one point, 60% to 100, but that student was awarded a D- because they missed over 10 school days. So that is where the high school currently is with the CA, and we know it's been a discussion of the board based on reviewing student records through discipline hearings and things like that. So at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to you all for any questions, discussions, or any more information you'd like.
So I guess, David, this goes before you, but so you're saying before 15 years ago, if they missed 10 days or more, they still got their actual grade? Or
Depending on the teacher.
depending on the teacher?
So some students, and this is according to Mr. Polizzi and Ms. Joseph, whose sons went through the system, teachers would fail students even if they had a passing grade if they missed too much class.
So it was arbitrary based on the teacher's opinion?
Correct. And so they went to the CA because they were told you can't do that. It should be based on student performance regardless of how much seat time, butts, and seats they have. So that leads us up to 2026 when students are still receiving the CA grade based on the 10 number of absences.
So David, to be clear, the Michigan merit says that we cannot do attendance. Is that what you're trying to present? That we don't really have recourse to go back to attendance? It's not allowed?
That is the impression that I'm under, based on the survey that we gave to a lot of various superintendents. That's some of the feedback that you saw, sometimes stronger language. Other students have different other schools have different mechanisms in place. Whether that's, and I'm not proposing any of these things because they need to be thought out by the people who would be implementing them. Student has to make up that time. They owe time back until they get that passing grade. I also understand the argument that Brian earns what Brian gets regardless of how much that he's in school. So I think all of us see both sides. The reality is Monroe High came up with that CA to try and increase student attendance and increase student achievement. You still get the credit, but you don't necessarily earn the grade. You get the minimum grade that affects negatively your GPA.
So if that was the intention, what has it done to attendance? Do we have that information? How has attendance moved? And are we saying 15 years is
big problem.
Are we saying 15 years is an exact time? You're saying 15 years ago or 15 years ago-ish?
It's a big problem.
You said 15 to 17 years ago.
15 to 17 years, 2008, 2009. What we do know is that our chronic absenteeism rates, which are different than truancy, they're on par with the rest of the state. that is, I guess, to more specifically answer your question, we do not know if it is effective or not.
Well, then we should probably look for that information. If we're saying it,
Well-
if we're saying that it could be, if we're saying that we hope that attendance would improve by the CA, then we should look at it and be able to see that one way or the other.
Well, that was kind
That's a
of,
data point, right?
And it goes back quite a few years. I don't know if that did.
Well, I don't know how far we can go back, but we can start going back to some period of time
Yeah.
as a data point.
yeah. So I kind of want to pick up where we left off at the last meeting. One of the things that was brought up is you're going to look into, that's why I asked my question about how do we get questions answered? Because these were the three things that I wrote down came out of that meeting. The first one was a legality of, is it legal to withhold a earned grade by attendance? And it sounds like you can do that. No. You can't do that.
You can, according to the Michigan Merit Curriculum, the only thing that can determine a student's credit or no credit is whether or not they've demonstrated enough to pass the course. So
But our current structure,
no one is penalized. No one does not, there's a lot of
I
double
know, they
negatives
get
in
a
here.
grade,
They
but
get a,
I
they
get it.
they
Yeah.
get the credit for
Okay.
being able to demonstrate
Okay,
60% or above.
yeah.
Don't necessarily get the grade they deserve, but they get the credit.
They get the
Right.
credit that they earned, but they don't get the grade, which negatively
Right.
affects their GPA.
So
But
the conversation was, to what Brian was saying, when we looked at the attendance problem, which is what led to this, is the high attendance and truancy problem that we have, which is what brought this topic up to begin with. The administration was going to structure a system for attendance not connected to grades. Anybody come up with anything to say what would the system look like if it's not connected to grades? Or is it just attendance is no longer considered, we go back to a regular grading scale for everybody, no CAs? Is that what it would look like? Okay. And then I know, Steve, we had asked about if you were going to talk to teachers about a risk and rewards on any feedback on that. I don't know where you were with that. If,
surveyed the staff about if they agree with
So you wanna come on?
Yeah. Steve, you want to hit the microphone up here? Thank you.
I know people online can't hear.
We surveyed the staff
True.
at our last PD to see where they were in relationship to the CAs. And out of 60 responses, I think 10 disagreed with it. They said that there shouldn't be a policy in place. They should get the grader. But a majority of the staff wants the CAs in place.
For, what is the risk of removing that?
Kids won't show up to school.
So you think that if you, like, you think that, or they think that kids are coming to school because they want the grade. They want the credit. Last conversation, it didn't sound like that was like, a driver to get kids to come to school.
No, it definitely is getting kids to come to school. They realize that if they don't meet the attendance protocols, I receive parent excusals all the time and doctor's excusals all the time because kids want their absences excused. So they are paying attention to how many absences they have, and they do want to earn that grade.
Right. So to have an attendance separate and have its own system separate from the grades would still have its own pull to get them there because there would be the own consequences with the truancy and your current chronic absenteeism policies that are in place. So they would be an enforcement of themselves. Grades just wouldn't be the enforcement included in that. So that if you go to school, the grade that you get is the grade you get.
I guess I could add to Terry and I were talking today. Based on my experience, a letter regarding truancy holds very little weight with families. Attendance, sometimes students respond positively, sometimes there is no change, whether it's prosecutor referral. an attendance policy with teeth to it, and that's punitive. Some may argue that that's doing more damage and fracturing relationships between families and school. That's the other side. But no letter, in my opinion, has ever scared a majority of students and said, I better come to school.
So Steve, you might be able to help out with Brian's question and what's being alluded here. Is there a way for you to quantify the conversation? I mean, is it through those appeal hearings that you have, or is it through the process of the attendance conversations that the kids understand that if they don't come in the CA, and why that becomes more important than just a letter grade?
So the biggest thing that we need to do at the high school that we do is build relationships with students and understand why they're not coming to school. The most frustrating situations when you can't get a hold of anybody. I do home visits a couple times a week, and rarely does the door get answered for some students. But in making those calls and making those visits, you find out a lot of information as to why they're not showing up to school. So we take those situations into consideration, and in many cases, we do excuse absences for doctors' situations, or maybe they can't afford to go to the doctors. So we take these matters into consideration. It's up to the principal or the assistant principal to make those determinations. And the administrator can bring in a group of, whether it be teachers, support staff, to appeal if they don't feel comfortable making those excusals. So
We would still support that process, and it's not a suggestion that that process go away, by no means.
Right.
But I know the prosecutor, a couple of us went, when he was putting together his new program to address attendance along with the schools, and working with that, you were there. So, there is an avenue to address that from a community standpoint with him, that would help in all of that. I'm not suggesting any of that. What I'm saying is all of that needs to be addressed. We understand that. But to get grades, let's deal with that in its own avenue and not penalize on a grade standpoint. If we're not going to penalize and the rules are going to change depending on the circumstances, then let's not penalize for grades either. If you earn an A, you earn an A. You don't automatically get a D- because your absence is exceeded. If you earned an A, you earned an A. Handle the absenteeism, handle the truancy, handle it in the process, work with the prosecutor to work on helping all of that and continue to do what you do. That's where I'm kind of looking at this
I'm
at.
guessing you don't get many A's from people that are chronically absent first.
Well, I don't know.
I'm just
I'm
just
gonna
out there. I'm
guess.
just out on a limb on that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you a
But if they could get a C, then
Fine.
let them
Yeah,
get a
C
C.
might be different. So I'm very surprised to hear that you go 2 to 3 times a week for home visits.
there's some weeks I go more than once.
So how do you make a determination on who you go visit? Because I got to imagine this is a pretty big pool. What's the size
Not
of the pool?
necessarily. I mean, there are students that we haven't heard from in a few weeks,
Okay.
where we've made phone calls, called emergency contacts, and we'll go out and visit them.
Okay.
Just to find out what's going on, see if they still live at that
Yeah.
residence. So, yeah, I leave a lot of messages on the Ring doorbell.
What do you all
So
think?
it's probably not someone who's on their 11th absence that you're making a
Right.
home visit. It's probably like their 20th or
It's
something like that.
quite a few absences, yes,
Yeah.
that they've racked up, and we haven't seen them in quite some
Yeah,
time.
So it's more like,
Yeah.
it's almost like a home visit.
well check.
Concern.
Exactly.
Since this is a work session, I'm eager to hear from other board members their thoughts.
I guess, Steve, my first question would be, because it goes back to the credit recovery and credit and then the CA. If I miss 10 days, what is stopping me from making up that work? Is there a way, is there an avenue that I can take to make up that 10 days that I missed? So that I am back on schedule, whatever grade
Many
I was
students
getting?
do. Yeah, many students do make up that work. A lot of the work is on Google Classroom. they'll come to tutoring. If they do miss work, a lot of teachers stay after school with their students. They've missed some time. So yeah, there's many avenues where they can make up that work.
See,
So
I guess
that would allow, yeah, go ahead.
That's what is my.
That would allow them to get a grade that they earned.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Going back to Brian's point, that would get the
Keep it
grade that they
separate.
earned,
and then keep
and they
attendance
would-
separate.
learn something.
Right.
10 days, I don't learn anything. But when I come back, if I have to make up that work,
I would
can
assume,
make up that
that
work.
those are put into an attendance plan.
Yes.
With our students, so.
Yeah.
We're good
Yeah,
best in.
and we're not
Yeah.
talking about, like, the kids that are very close with the attendance, like if they're at 10 or 11, we'll have conversations with them to see, were you skipping these days, or were you sick? A lot of them, their parents call. Parent calls don't count as excused absences. So we'll look at it and see, what's going on, what happened. If you're close, we do want to honor the grade and the work that you've done. We're talking about students that have missed 25, 30, 35 days of school for whatever reason. Many students can keep up with the classes because our teachers have learned a lot during COVID. A lot of the teachers do lectures online and videotape their lectures and put their work online, and students can log it in home and do it. So there are many ways.
but
that
are they,
kids can
but are
keep
they doing it? That's the question. Are they doing it?
up. Many of them are. Yeah.
And Gary, to your point, there are the students. Steve is going to do the well checks on the kids that are missing 5, 10 big chunks of time. I might miss every Friday because I like that extra day on the weekend. Like we notice patterns with kids. And if you miss every Friday over first quarter or a semester, that's 18 weeks. Like that 1 day a week is almost 4 weeks of school. But can you get by? And can you get by missing 1 day a week? Some kids probably can.
That's correct 2 words, some kids.
Some kids. Yep.
Are we going back to the majority? Probably not.
But our current structure is set up if you're over 10 days, you hit
a-
that 11th day.
in a semester,
So if you
yes.
move the attendance away and keep it separate from grades, and then they can do the work and do all that online stuff and earn a grade that they would earn rather than be on the 11th APIS, you're stuck in a D- because you're going to get a CA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, what do other school districts do? Do they all have different direction, or they follow the same model that we have?
They gave us that data at the last.
It is all over the place. They have whether it's you have to go to a study table, you have to make up your time. Some of it's nothing. Some of them, I guess, it'd be interesting to see some of these superintendents see the results of other ones because, some are saying 10 days is your no credit. Some districts do that according to what they reported. I do not think that's equitable. I don't think that's best practice, but.
Well, we were doing that, and we were told we had to stop that. So this was back when I was an AP.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's
many years ago.
suggesting.
Yeah.
No one's suggesting we
Yeah.
go to that. We're just looking at how can we deal with the 2 of them and just let kids get their grade.
I know, we're just trying to find tools to give to you to do your job,
We set the structure and we say, okay, attendance is going to be dealt this way, grades are going to be dealt this way, and then you all go do. Like, I'm not telling you how to do. I'm just saying that those 2 separate, then you just go do.
How would you feel if we said 10 days, we're scrapping the 10 days, what would you set the attendance policy at?
Well,
Is
this
10
is
days
something-
good, or should it be 20 days more accurate and look at GP?
Well, I think this was all based off of policies that we created many years ago.
Yep.
And it also adjusted based off of, we were in trimesters at one point, and then now we're in semesters. We had block scheduling, so that the days have adjusted. But our teachers and our staff are the ones that really came together to develop this. If we were to do any changes, or if we were to readdress this, and in the survey that I did, majority of them wanted to keep it. But if we were looking at, it was a request from the board to look at this, our staff would have to come together to create a system
That's what-
that would separate the
That's
two.
what we asked for last time.
Right. Well, I wanted to get the agreement from our staff to see what do they think about it. I
Because
wanted to
obviously when you-
get their opinions
When
on
you
it.
did this 15 years ago, you didn't have the other methods of instruction like the virtual.
No.
And, which
Nope.
is available now, so they can keep up even if they
Yep.
don't. show
That is
up in
correct.
class. Would, I guess it'd be an interesting question to to teachers, if we did somewhat of a trial, let's say the first semester of next year, we're gonna separate attendance and grades and then see the impact on attendance. If it goes
I can tell you
way-
it's going to be a huge impact.
If all of a sudden, yeah,
Why? Because you already explained your process of attendance. So we're not suggesting you stop doing any of
There's
that.
going to be more kids missing because there will be kids that,
Well,
that
we
say,
don't know
I
that.
am not going to show up on a
They
Friday.
don't have that great incentive to come
Yeah.
to school. There are
Well,
some
they're still
students.
going to need to get a grade. If they don't come to school and they don't do the work and they get an F, they're getting 0 credit. They're getting 0 credit. So there is an incentive there. Right now, if they don't come to school, they still get a credit. But if they don't come to school, they don't,
They still have to do the work.
they still have to do, but the point is, if you don't come to school and you don't do your work, you don't get a credit at all. There's the incentive. I mean, it's
There are-
100%. It's
we have some
100%.
very
You don't
smart
come to
kids
school
that-
and you don't do it, you don't get the credit. I mean,
We have some bright kids that don't come to school as often as they should. They can go on Google Classroom, watch a couple videos and do the work.
so if they're
We want
currently
them-
doing that, and that's within our structure already, but we still have such a high attendance problem, and we still have such a high, when we were looking at the grades and we were looking at, where they all sit too, I say, again, I just think that you get the grades you earn. We have tools in place for you to help make up work. We have online stuff. There's a lot more tools that are available. I think you work with the prosecutor and continue with your attendance. It sounds like you guys work really hard on that and get the kids in school. But if you don't come to school and you don't do the work, you don't get a credit.
Which they don't. So,
Well, right now, anyone who earns 60 or above gets a credit, and it sounds like what the board may be proposing in doing away the CA, if you still earn above coming to school or not coming to school, you're still going to get credit if
Yeah.
you pass.
Yeah.
pass.
Even if
just-
it's you do the work and you get a D minus, you get a D minus. You do the work and you get a C, you get a C. But we all know, and this isn't, I don't think that any would disagree on that. If you don't go to class and you don't look at the work and you don't do it, you're not going to be able to get a grade because you have no idea what you're even talking about. So you're either being online, you're either being in the classroom, you're either being something in order to get that grade.
So to the college students who may or may not have attended class very well, Mr. Sabini falls into that category. It was very punitive sometimes because it was very apparent that if you didn't go to Italian class 8 a.m. and do the labs, you weren't going to be able to make it. Certain classes, that's not true. You can do exactly what I did, which is not attend very many classes and get a B. So you're right. There are kids that are going to do okay.
They will.
They will. I don't think that's the person we're worried about here right now. I don't really think so.
No.
So
No, we-
Steve, during your attendance plan meetings, are there any kids that sit in there and go, can we work out a plan where I'm at day 12, and so they're sitting down, work on a plan or whatever that number is. Is there any way that I can make it so that I don't get a CA, that I get the grade that I've earned based off, and as long as I stay under 20 days of absences? Or is there anything that in the attendance plan, when you guys create attendance plans with kids?
We don't negotiate like that. We would look at their attendance.
Yep.
See-
I would guess, have the kids ever brought up that point to
Never.
you? Okay.
Never.
But I could see how if you want to, and I'm always a stickler. I want rules, I want numbers, I want everybody to follow, like we all know that about me. But for an attendance standpoint, because it is so ambiguous, because there are so many factors in there, and if it's separate from grades, that would allow for some of that conversation to happen with your grades in a different way with attendance, if it's separate from grades. I could see how that could be, I don't see how with grades because it's straightforward, but.
But I imagine you have to analyze it that student A over here has had whatever number of days absent, and you know for a fact that there's no medical insurance in the house, or they're not taking their child to the doctor, but you know for a fact that child was sick, and they've already climbed over that number, then you still have to, you work through though, going, you understand that, yeah, you're already at that number 15 as an example, that the CA doesn't get kicked in because there's things out of that child's control
Yes.
that's impeded that. So there's,
But now you would just give them, like Gary suggested, give them the work, give them the tools so they can make it up, because now
already
it
do.
would not be attendance associated with grades.
I guess I look at it from the perspective, beginning of the semester, teacher hands out a syllabus. Here's all the things you need to learn. Here's all your assignments, and if I don't show up, I'm gonna flunk.
Right.
I'm gonna flunk. Granted, I might pass a couple of the tests, and then I can get a CA. I don't think that's right. If you can't fulfill that syllabus that the teacher proposes, that they expect you to learn, then you should not get a D minus. You should flunk.
Right.
That should be your repercussion.
Mary, you look like you're
Yeah,
ready to
I-
talk.
Yep. So a couple of things that I've been thinking about. So for students that have chronic absenteeism, if we're uncoupling attendance and grades, and we're open to the idea, we're receptive to the idea of students being able to access their educational materials outside of the school day in order to make up their schoolwork, so they can earn the grades that they earn in the end. What is preventing that student from just taking off the rest of the school year and being unofficially remote?
They could go to virtual.
No. Because like the system that was recently discussed is, what is their goal if they can achieve everything they need to achieve without having to be in the building? Why? And then my next point is, similarly, if we give them a syllabus up front and we say, you have to be able to demonstrate mastery in all these areas, and a student goes, I can do that right now. Let me show you. And on the first day of class, they're like, ta-da, I just demonstrated mastery on this syllabus. Do we give them an A in that course and they never have to take it? So what's their motivation for attendance there?
I think it refers back to what Brian said about being in college. If the structure of the classroom,
I said
If the
that-
structure
I
in
said
the-
that purely as a devil's advocate, meaning that you
No.
could not go to class, and some
no,
people
what
do
I
this.
meant, what you did
I did not
say,
advocate it.
no, what you did say is there are things that are happening in the classroom that if you don't go to the classroom, you're going to miss, and you cannot make up, there's classroom stuff that can't be made up because it's in the classroom. Therefore, if you don't go to class and you don't get some of those things that are in that classroom, it's not virtual.
To Mary, to Mary's point, do you still allow students to test out of
We
the
do.
course?
Yep.
And do they get a grade when they test out?
No, they get pass or fail.
Just pass, and they
Yep.
get credit for it?
Right. They get credit if they pass
Yeah,
the
but
test.
it's just a pass.
I think it's a 69 or above.
So then my question is, for these students that can demonstrate mastery, why aren't we giving them an A, B, C, D, F on these classes that they're testing out of?
Yeah.
But that's not the way it's written in I read that, the way it's written in merit curriculum, correct me if I'm wrong, is the way it's written in there is you do it before class, you're not actually in the classroom.
School starts, yes.
Yep, and then they issue a pass or fail, so it's not our school system and it's not the teacher that does
But I
it.
could
Mary's
see,
proposing
yes.
changing it so they
So
get a grade.
what I could see is a student enrolls in classes, fall semester starts, 2 weeks in, we decide we don't want to do this anymore. I already know all this content. I'm going to pass out of this class now. Ta-da, ta-da. I've demonstrated mastery. Give me my A.
It doesn't allow you to do that in the
Instead,
merit
but that's
curriculum.
what I'm, no.
You gotta do it first.
But no. What I'm describing is the system where students in this hypothetical universe, where they realize, oh, if I can just demonstrate mastery to earn my grade, I'll just take the first 2 weeks, demonstrate mastery, peace out. I don't have to come for the rest of the semester.
Test out, give me a grade.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's not set up that
And
way.
it's really not even mastery, it's 70%.
She's proposing.
You're proposing that be,
No, I'm not
Which she's
proposing
saying-
I'm
anything.
just trying to understand.
Which
how-
No. What I'm
Darla?
saying is, so in a CA world, if we're uncoupling attendance and grades, and right now we're saying allow the students to access their materials remotely so they can catch up on work, so that they can earn the grade that they earn.
Yes.
What is stopping us? How is it equitable to allow those students who would have previously earned a CA? How is it equitable for us to say to the student 2 weeks into the semester that's just like, I already know how to do all of this. I'm going to demonstrate mastery now. Give me my A. I don't want a CA. I don't want a whatever. I want a letter grade. I'm just saying shifting from the existing system will open up additional doors that we might not intend.
So I just was going to jump on that with, I'd like to see more data about the kids we're talking about. So those kids that are chronically absent, getting the CAs, like what did they actually earn in the class? Like how many of them are actually getting an 89% versus a 70? What are we talking about there?
There's a little bit of data. There were 116 students who received one CA. So we're talking about sophomores to graduated seniors. They had an average GPA of 1.86. It's not entirely what you're looking for. There were 60 students with 2 CAs, and their GPA averaged 1.6. There were 41 students with 3 CAs. Their GPA averaged 1.5. If you go down, there were 3 students with 12 CAs. They averaged 0.7 GPA. So obviously, the more CAs you have, typically the lower you're performing, I guess, you're on GPA wise.
Right.
So
But my question was, what are they getting in that class? So like, if I'm in math, any math class, and I've hit that 10-day mark, and I come back and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna knock it out of the park. I'm gonna do my best. I get A's on every test. I'm earning, let's say a B plus. I'm earning a B plus in that class. But I'm only getting the CA, which only gives me that D minus
0.6, yep.
for my GPA. Like, how many kids are really knocking it out of the park when they come back knowing they're only gonna earn a CA? That's my question. And I don't expect for you to have that right now, but I'd love to see like
Sure.
what those kids could have gotten.
we can get a sample size.
Follow along what David was saying, and
This
Carrie,
you gave us.
But that's not what I'm asking.
I was just letting us know that they did provide us with data on CAs, the APSA grades.
Grade
and-
distribution,
yeah,
but not
yeah,
quite that.
Yeah.
Right.
people that are smart enough to take a pass-fail at the beginning of a semester, their GPA is not going to be 1.5. Their GPA is going to be 3, 4, because they are that much more knowledgeable and intelligent than the rest of us. I guess this goes back to Mary's point. That's exactly it. These people who are getting the CAs aren't that group that is intellectually superior to the rest of us. They seem to be people that are either probably just struggling or lazy, or they have circumstances at home that make things difficult.
James, you had
But I think that group, the smart group, is the percentage must be very, very small. And to take it a step further with that, if I had a child that was, and I actually did, that was smart enough to walk into a classroom like that, it would behoove me as an administrator, or a teacher, or a parent to say, you know what, if you can pass Algebra 1 walking in the door, guess what? You're taking Algebra 2 this semester.
that's what happens, right? So if you're testing out of classes up front, you do that before the start of the school year so the rest of your schedule can be filled. What I'm saying is there are very smart students out there that if they find this loophole with like earning the grade that you earn, I'm going to take 2 weeks of class, then I'm going to demonstrate mastery, take my A, and not roll in for the rest of the semester. That's a sticky spot if we decide to shift away from the existing structure that we have.
Right. And so that was another point I was going to make is if we have to make 75% attendance in order for the day to count in each of our buildings, what are we looking at now? It's not gonna work. And the reason why Michigan Merit curriculum came through was, back in the day, we were getting grades for attendance. Oh, you have perfect attendance or you only missed 2 days this semester? I'm gonna bump your grade up by, 10 percentage points or something. So that went away, but now what we're suggesting is if we're saying they have to be in class to get the best grade, teachers are going to start putting participation points on for those classroom activities. And now kids that are absent are still going to be missing those things.
But that's exactly the system we're using now. That-
Mr. Drew.
It's the same thing we're doing now.
I have a
go
couple
ahead.
comments. I
Go
think
ahead,
it'll
Mr. Drew.
address 2 or 3 of the concerns that got brought up. So this is anecdotal. This is from my school and from me being a teacher. You give the syllabus at the beginning. It basically outlines what you're going to do. It can give specific assignments or generalizations throughout, but it's the idea that's put forward, this our path. So a way to kind of like make it so they want to be there or so they have to participate. Generally speaking, within the two or three first weeks, month, whatever, they're not going to have a chance to do all the work in advance. And they have to do enough of the work along a course of time so that like 2 or 3 weeks in wouldn't give them time. So really it's how the teacher structures their classroom. If they're not giving them all the tests up front, you can see the test, take the test, okay, you're done. The last test is the final exam. This is when it's scheduled. The previous test to that, there's a schedule to it, and you're not given the big reveal until the time it comes. As far as like the CA discussion, I think for our school, and I think probably Steve's too, is the CA really a lot of times for me allows a discussion between the student and the teacher to come to an agreement or a plan for makeup. Now, if they never have that conversation, most likely they're going to fail because they didn't bother doing it. If they have the conversation, it allows the teacher a little leeway because maybe the teacher's policy is I don't accept late work beyond a certain time. So I'm willing to back off on that, but you have to do this, this, and this to make up for it. Now I have a little leeway that will allow me to consciously give you a CA and you still earn 60% above and we're okay with it. So there's negotiation points. So that's kind of.
Steve, have you had, James, both of you, any parents advocating or being upset over not having their child get a grade for classes in this
Getting
model?
a CA?
Yeah.
No.
I think generally speaking, they're grateful. And in my situation, I know Steve's is probably quite different. I don't have a lot of conversations with parents about grades. I think the gratefulness is that there's a credit awarded, and then it's up to the school to determine in good faith and with honoring the Michigan Merit, our district and our board, that we're given that credit that they earned, not just given away. And so that's the negotiation between teachers. Did the student show the competencies and do the work required? So I have one teacher that you guys kind of alluded to anecdotally. If you don't go to her class and participate in her very specific assignments, you're probably not going to earn credit. And there's really no way to go back and do it. But the kids know that. It's told to them up front. There's a plan for it. Does she have the ability then to make agreements with kids and give them that minimum level of competency that she believes in her? Because the credit comes from the teacher. They decide have they met the competency or not. And then if I have a question on it, if I question it, then I go to them like, hey, show me the numbers. What do we got going on here? But that doesn't come up very often because the teachers have a good answer for themselves what they think that competency is. What's that 60% level that shows that, yes, I in good faith can give this kid a grade? And if they don't feel comfortable with that, they won't. And if they get pushback from the kid or another staff member, I don't necessarily get involved with grade books very much, unless I need to, then they'll stand up for themselves. Well, this is what it is, this is what it is. And I've had to go to teachers before, sometimes because of discipline reasons near an end of a year, or attendance reasons, and like negotiate with them for the kid, because maybe they don't know what's going on with the kid. And I'll say, hey, this is what's going on, and my question will be, what's the minimum requirements for your class that you feel confident giving them that D- level, or the CA? Maybe they go above it, but at least they hit that minimum. And then they'll give me the packet, or the kid the packet, or all the stuff on Google Classroom. If they don't meet that, they're not getting credit. And that's the hard line. And so they create this hard line for the kids, like, you've missed a lot of days. You missed this time. This is my bottom line. And this is it. And those are the ones really that you're like, that's that leverage point. And I don't really want to give up that leverage point. Does it work for all kids? No way. But there are specific examples where it works really well with. And it gives us that conversation. And I would hate to take away that conversation.
Part of my concern, and I know from talking to employers out in the workforce, attendance, once you get in the workforce, you got to show up every day. And a lot of these kids don't, or they show up late, and they need to understand, and that's part, I think, of our job, make them understand that if they don't show up for work, or they're late every day from work, they're going to get fired.
Yeah.
Can I talk to that one? Sorry.
Sure.
So I'm going to use that as an example of several students, not all students, but several situations. So I've had several kids who are 18 years old or 19, super seniors. They come to me and say, Mr. Drew, I have a full-time job. I'm working at such and such a place. I got to have this money because my parents need the $600 a month I'm bringing to them.
Yeah.
But I'm only going to be able to make it a certain amount of time. So then I'm like, all right, well, you need to talk to your teachers about that. And I already know in advance, the teacher knows in advance that I could make that. So it's this balance. So they're like showing this responsibility. They've already been irresponsible in some way, and they're trying to regain it.
Well,
But I
certainly.
agree with you.
Certainly, if that's the situation and they come proactively to the teacher and say, let's create a plan.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't penalize them in that case.
Right, and then that's the negotiation.
Yeah. But
I just want to make sure we have some flexibility, however you guys decide to do it. I'm requesting some ability to at least have those conversations.
Well, I think that even if grades and attendance aren't attached, there's always the autonomy to be able to go to your student and say, okay, this is where we're at in the semester. You're not doing well. And if you don't do this, you're going to have some problems. So we know extra credit, we know, all those tools that are in your toolbox are there regardless if the CA comes up or not, because those should be coming up if the student's not meeting the mark, because we want students to get credit. We want students to pass classes, but we also want students to come to school. And, what we're looking at is we have a big attendance problem. We have a grade problem. I mean, if we look at our gradings, we have a grade problem. So because they are such heavyweights, you know what I mean? That's what brought us here. They're two big heavyweights.
You made a point, Mr. Drew, and I agree with you. Excuse me. First of all, those kids are smarter than anybody in this room. They know every angle, they know all of it. And just like you said, when those kids walked into that school, that particular teacher, they all know who she is. They know what her requirements are, so they have to toe the line for that particular class.
Right.
But they also know all these other classes said, well, I don't have to show up, I don't have to do homework, I don't have to do this, this, and this, I'll get a CA. What if all those teachers had the same exact requirement as that particular teacher and say, attendance, homework, test scores, these are your requirements. If you don't meet these, I'm going to flunk you. And you can go back and take your junior year all over again. There needs to be repercussions to some extent for these kids.
So
There has to be repercussions.
I would argue
agree. I agree.
that doing what I'm here, or creating a resolution to do away with the CA is counterproductive to the attendance goals that we all have for our kids. And I understand what everyone is saying. We want to raise expectations. We want to hold kids accountable. We want to give them a dose of the real world. They are with the CA. And it is a delicate way to do that. And we can impose an attendance requirement that doesn't give students credit. And everyone in this room is in agreement, I think, most people are in agreement in this room, that if we do away with the CA, attendance will not improve. Like it is the only thing that the high school has right now and Orchard has to hold students somewhat accountable for attendance. And separating the two, I think, would be detrimental to what graduating students, holding kids accountable, getting students in the building. Right now is not the time to for high stakes failure. Now is the time to reduce barriers for students. And I think that we do a good job of that without watering down expectations for students. I understand the arguments for the real world, but now isn't the time to set kids back years. It's the time to have those conversations. That's just my opinion.
And I think that this is the 35,000 foot view, and I'm not in the weeds like you're in the weeds. And if you're telling me in the weeds that leverage matters to you and those things work, then I'm on board, because you're telling me that. You're telling me that teachers do that, and I'm going to trust that that's the stuff that's happening in the weeds that I can't see up here. But I think it's all of our opinions, I think universally, that we want kids to attend school and we want to see kids get better grades. There's none of us up here who are arguing for a system that doesn't do that. We're arguing for how can we tweak anything as you think of what can we do to do these things. I think that's at least where I sit. I'm like,
Yeah, how do we motivate the kids to get back in school and see the importance
can't sit
of
where we're at.
attendance?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't, what do we do? How do we get them back in their seats?
Yeah, we need to continue to find out what they need, find out why they're missing school, talk to their parents, encourage them to encourage their kids to come to school. Our teachers work very hard to create engaging lessons and to ensure students are understanding concepts and material. We just need to continue to develop those relationships, reach out to families, find out what the issues are. A lot of times with these truancy situations, there are major things going on in their homes. A CA is a gift to some of these kids that are struggling with whatever. So we need to continue to keep our eye on the ball, to create the urgency for kids to come to school, develop relationships with families to ensure that they know that school is a great place to be for their kid, so that they can do whatever it is that they want to do when they graduate. And we have those conversations with kids and families every day.
Steve, what's your perspective? If we eliminate the CA, would that, I don't know how many kids drop out nowadays once they're allowed to drop out, but would you expect that dropout rate to go up if we eliminate the CAs?
I would expect kids not to come to school, as many kids to come to school. And unless, again, we have a very smart staff, unless we develop some sort of system to engage students in school other than using the attendance policy with the CA, we would really need to work hard as to how to get kids to come to school. In many of these cases with kids that are truant, the grade is not, like the CA, the grade is not even a thing in their mind.
right?
It's not even something that they're considering because they've got health issues going on, they've got family things going on. So we work with those students to ensure that they have what they need to be successful, and we get them to come to school as many days as we can. I go and pick up kids all the time. I mean, we're going to get them to school. I text families all the time, Mom, hey, I noticed so-and-so is not in school today. What's going on? Does he need a ride? Whatever it is, we're going to find a way to get kids to school. And we do many different things. You guys are going to come on Thursday. Hopefully it's not too cold. We're going to show you a lot of the different things that we do, whether it's through our early middle college, whether it's through our Trojan Academy, whether it's through our CTE programs, our freshman academy. There are many different ways that we are trying to engage kids so that they come to school and see the importance of showing up every day to give their best. But also, we also wanted to make a fun and exciting place to be as well. So we are working every day on the culture that we're building within our school. Those are the things that make a difference in attendance. The CA stuff, it's there. We had to put it in place because we had teachers deciding you're failing, you miss so many days, you're failing. We can't do that. So we were told we can't do that. So this is what we've created, and we never moved away from something like that. About a year or 2 years ago, I had to implement a situation where teachers had the option to give a student a CA if they went over 10 or give them the grade. That created a lot of issues because then you had a math teacher, let's say, give the kid a C, but then you had an English teacher giving them the CA. And that inconsistency caused issues within our school, among staff. So we give everyone a CA, and we allow the assistant principals, the principals, and then if we have to get a team to review any appeals, to take a look at a student's attendance, to see if are there ways that we can reduce the number of absences they have to be excused because of some situation. We really try to work with families and students so they can earn that grade.
So I agree with what you're saying. And in fact, I think you and I agree more than we realize.
Yeah.
Because in you explaining when you're talking about all the barriers with the attendance, the one thing you said is the kids aren't even thinking about grades because they have all this other stuff going on. And we need to work to help get them in seats. I 1,000% agree with that through an attendance. You know what I mean? Because you're like, and then you said that CAs are a gift. I think a grade is a gift. I mean, so, work with the students, get them in the classroom, do all those fundamental things that you do, and let them earn the grade that they get. Because CA only makes sense if it's penal towards an attendance. Because if we take that away, then you do everything that you do to ensure those students get the grade so they can get a credit, so they can get out there.
Okay.
I went on a little. I want to, I guess, say a couple things. I think that everyone is in agreement that attendance. We're all in agreement that attendance in this district, academic achievement in this district. We want to be better. We're not where we want to be. And we're thankful for a board that is looking at tweaking some things or asking questions to help us along that journey. But like Mama Sabadini, would she have let you skip class if you were in her house? And were you living at home? And there's a point to this, I promise.
You're going to pick on Mama Sabadini.
Yes.
If Mama Sabadini knew what Brian Sabadini, well, she might be listening.
Yep.
She doesn't listen.
You're playing into my hands here. Yep. Keep going.
I'm trying to put a T on there for you. Had she known in college that I was doing what I was doing, she would have been mortified. But if you're asking me in high school if that would have happened, I don't think it came down to Mama Sabadini. This is back to a question that goes to the workforce as well. Mm-hmm. I always make the argument that workers stay at a place not because of what you pay them, usually. I mean, as long as it's competitive. They stay there because they have 3 or 4 or 5 friends that they're very close to, and that makes work. Same thing happened to me. I had 3 or 4 or 5 friends at least that were high achieving people that drove me further, right? So it really wasn't Mama Sabadini anymore. It was these group of peers that I had. And I think at high school, the group of peers make as big a difference as it does. But if you're saying in 4th grade or 5th grade or 6th grade, No way.
But
I'm
I
sorry,
guess,
Brian, you have, your stomach hurts, that's not a problem.
right. It didn't hurt at all over winter break.
You know what's interesting, Brian, is that's exactly what the prosecutor's plan is. That's exactly what he's talking about putting in place. He's talking about using the SROs to help students build relationship. There's a program at the high school called Team Pep. And I know that through substance abuse and stuff, they're working at using it. And that's exactly what it does. It builds those groups, and they're understanding that that is a key component to getting kids in there. So part of that's why I'm keep bringing that up, because that's a plan. I think that's a viable plan. I think it's a real thing, and that's what the prosecutor identified too, and that's what Team Pep identified too in the high school. You know what Team Pep is?
No. Those
You know
are
it's
good
impact,
points.
yeah.
I guess what I was going to say though is that we're talking about
Same
the
thing.
things that buildings are doing to try and bring students in and create a culture and make them not want to miss. But I did hear a couple times, like the two words that I'm hearing the least are student and parent, and they are such an integral part of attendance, and not meaning that is an excuse or a scapegoat, but it is a active partnership. I believe attendance is, and that's, I believe that we are doing the right things in our buildings, trying to create those positive relationships.
I just think it becomes less the older you get. That's all I'm saying. The parental role starts taking a bit of a back seat to what's happening amongst peers. But, from K to sixth grade, no, your parents are the law enforcement agency, and they're gonna make sure you're there.
I don't know if anybody has the data that was presented from David. You presented packet of information for us as well on CAs back when we first asked for it. And in there, the average GPA for students who received at least one CA is what they're saying is a 1.6. And then roughly that would be equivalent to a C minus. So if that's already a factor, then they're going to earn that grade regardless of whether a CA is in play or not. So there was a lot of data in those packets. If anybody wants to go back and pull them up, they were really good information.
I guess my question is, why take away flexibility if we don't have to? Right? Because in my mind, flexibility allows us to meet our students and families where they are. It allows us to have not only flexibility, but also agility to meet their needs in a timely fashion as well. The CA provides a lot of flexibility. Taking away the CA is taking away a component of flexibility, responsiveness, agility, whatever adjective you want to use. So I guess in my mind, if we look at each student as an individual and they're unique and they all have their own needs, they all have their own struggles, they all have their own story, why would we want to remove one additional layer of potential support, an additional avenue that would lead them to success? I guess I just don't understand narrowing the scope of what we allow our students and our staff to do to meet the needs of our students.
I think we're doing the exact opposite. I think separating the two, as we talked, it's actually freeing them up. They can focus on grades. They can focus on grades in the way that they focus on it, and there was a bunch of ideas that were brought up here. All of those factors are still relevant, and then you can have the flexibility to be able to do what you do with attendance. Because I think the two of these combined is probably a bigger barrier than allowing for the flexibility of what you could do in each of those categories if they're not connected. That's my thought.
Steve, when you go visit, let's say make a home visit or these interactions that we have with kids, do you find that if Johnny and Dave don't like to go to school, that Johnny and Dave both don't go to school? But if Johnny and Dave like to go to school, they both go to
Oh,
school?
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So however we connect more peer-to-peer bonding.
peer mentoring,
Is probably
absolutely.
probably the biggest thing that could happen.
Yep.
It's
And
called
that's-
Pathfinder.
And that's coming up in our, in about
There's programs.
one more
Yes.
bullet point. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to suggest through this conversation that on February 10th, we put this down as a new business item. So that way the Board of Education can make a decision around CAs. Carrie will gather that one piece of information that you've requested, and I want to make sure I've gotten this one right. What are the grades that kids would have had they not been issued a CA? I believe that was a piece of data you wanted right there. And was there any other data? Was there one other piece of data I missed?
Does CA approve attendance? I'm not sure anecdotally, or I don't know, there
How
might be,
you would
we,
prove that.
there may be a study at some
That's gonna
point,
be a study.
depending on, but
Well,
If you can find.
yeah, we just need something applicable.
So
to-
something I'd like to have the group ponder is, so on that night, you will either have an option to make a motion to continue doing what we're doing, make a motion to eliminate, make it what you get is what you get, or you can even do a motion, right, like what you were suggesting, do a pilot next fall to find further data, and you could have even a fourth option right there. But I would recommend that we'll make that as a new business item so that this board can make a decision on this. One last point I would like to also make, though, is that a lot of what we do is not compartmentalized with kids. So we think about the CA, the letter grades, the attendance, everything is pulled together as one big unit, and we don't do everything in these silos. Some stuff are silos, but we always have talked over the last multiple years, I say multiple years, like since the early 90s, about the integration and cross-curricular work. And so when we think about like that, for example, in CTE right now, we have that happening where they're incorporating the math or in phys ed and other, and so that how powerful it is. If we went back to this is what you do, you don't do anything else, then we have that pullback. So a lot of what we're doing, like with the CA and with the attendance, it's coupled together because the two of them are integral. And so sometimes we can't, if we can break things apart, we do there, but I just wanted to share that. But I think at the end of the day, we'll bring that back in there on February 10th. It'll be a new business item. We move forward to letter grades.
Can I ask for one more piece of data on that? Can you all give me some positives to that as well? Because anytime we look at anything, where there's negatives and there are positives. And I would just like you to brainstorm what would be positives of separating the two, because there are, that everything's not negative in one way, whatever you look at. So I can give you negative and positives, on it. So I'm asking if you all could do the same.
Appreciate that. So on that number 2, credits, letter grades, and GPA, that was a conversation. I know that was over the idea around Ds, D minuses, the point of what a student can get a credit or not receive a credit. And so I know that David has shared a lot of information there. And so I believe at this spot, I want to just push it out to the board. Is there anything more further? Or is this something that you want to bring into a board room, or is there further questions on that topic?
You're referring to whether we want to move
The
Passing
conversation
from
in
a
the
D
past,
minus to
yeah,
a D.
in the past, conversations was,
Yeah.
that students at Monroe Public Schools and across many of the school districts, a D minus, you receive a credit.
That seems to be, I've talked to some, even my former teachers, Ms. Gartz, who I still
I
talk
like
to.
her. Yeah, she's a nice lady.
And it seems like D minus has been there forever. I mean, I'm talking
Long time.
50, 60 years ago. So it's not anything new or anything in the last 10, 15 years.
I would be curious, though, you say that, did the level rise of D minuses passing?
It's a good question, Nick. Obviously, grade inflation is a big topic these days.
And I'm
especially at
not,
the college level.
and I don't think we would, I don't think we could get to that information very easily.
No.
But like I said, to me, when I looked at the grade distribution that you shared with us, the 1,117 Fs stood out very negatively for me, that many were earned. Now, that's a distribution. I almost would like to hear the median number of that, right? Because an average doesn't help me very much, but the median would help me a whole lot more on what people are getting on the 1,117. because somebody might be earning 15 of those. Someone else might be earning 2 of those. A little more of the bell
Was that
curve
high- Was
thought.
that high school? Or was
Yes,
that
it
just-
was out of the 400 seniors, I believe.
It was just
It
seniors.
was in board
Yes.
briefs.
Because I was just, the reason
Sorry,
I
it was seniors, yes.
Yeah, and the reason I
For
asked
sure.
that is how many additional, like, if we have that many Fs,
Mm-hmm.
how many CAs are included as well? Because we looked at those Fs, but there could be a bunch of CAs.
Was that right?
I'm looking at MHS grade distribution, and I could do some simple math, but as CAs represented 7%,
Right.
Fs, there were 32, no, I'm sorry, there were 42 more Fs, so maybe 8% of all the grades earned at Monroe High are Fs.
Okay.
Darla, can you restate that question in regards to the CAs?
He just answered it. He just provided the percentage of CAs and Fs because
Okay.
just like we were talking, if you remove the attendance and it's all on grades, there would be no CAs associated. There'd be a grade, a fail, or a grade. Failing's a grade. And so he was listing out how many Fs and how many D minuses and how many CAs. I just didn't remember if that was on there. So in addition to that, there's CAs on there as well.
So I guess the question I have, is this an item that you as a board would like to see as an action item? If so, I would be putting it on that February 10th, or we're just gonna, is this an area that you just, like, at this point in time, it's left alone? That's part of your conversation.
I think we need to hear from some other board members' perspective. Leaning to the right side of the.
You were all down there.
I talked.
You did.
I spoke up once.
We have a new topic.
How do you, I mean, how's?
Actually, I'd like to talk about this some more. This
Yeah.
is really important, but not just us. I need them guys. They're the experts. We need to give them the tools that they need to do their job.
Well, Steve, I'm sorry.
sorry. No, go ahead.
No, you were in the middle of a thought. I
No,
apologize.
I listened intently to what Steve had to say, and it seemed like we were talking about the extremes. In one hand, we had these kids that are really intelligent. And then on the other hand, we had these kids that have serious problems at home. But what about this big majority in the middle? Are we serving them the way we should be serving them? Are we preparing them for adulthood? Are they competent in some of these core curriculums that they should be? That's where my focus is on this big group in the middle. I listen to Steve, nothing but admiration, honestly, that you went out of your way to help these kids. Mr. Drew, we've talked, I know what you've done, and my hat's off to both you guys, and I know I can speak for the three ladies out there.
That's,
You know?
I don't do as, I mean, my staff is the one that, like, it's not me. My staff is like the ones that make a difference every day. Like, I'll try to remove any barriers. I know James does, all of us. We remove any barriers that we can for our kids because that's what they deserve. But we got people every day. That's what they do.
I guess for me, it's important for you guys to understand is I'm really on your side. I really want to help you guys. I really want to see these kids succeed, and coming here as a board member, it's like, if I bring an outside perspective, maybe that'll help you guys think and come up with the answers that we need. I want to see the school district succeed. I really do. I really, really do. And I am open-minded about this. The thought that kept going through my head, obviously I haven't been in school for a while. But it seemed like when I was in school, your final grade was dependent on three things. It was your homework was 30%, tests were 30%, and attendance was 30%. And that seemed to me, I've always thought that was pretty darn fair, that would be the final grade. As opposed, it seems like we're taking attendance and giving that 50% of the weight, if not more, of each one of these kids. as opposed to what they should be learning or should be doing, and plus their test taking. You guys are the expert. That's just an old man's point of view on this, you know. But that's it.
I appreciate the tough questions that you're asking. There were 252 students in the current senior class. 63% of seniors earned at least one D- during their high school career. For some of those, pick on my partner Brian here, B-, and I played that game. Like the B was, I was not going to get yelled at by Mama Malalepsy if I got B's on my college grade card. Same thing in high school. D- for some students, the D- is their B for some of these students, and we're trying to get them to show what they know, to go more, and that's part of like maturing and not being ready for the real world yet because they are kids. But that D- for some students, like that is achieving something for some of our students. Depending on the challenges that they face, of course, we want all of our students to achieve their fullest potential. But that D- for some students, because of what they're going through, like that is something remarkable.
So
And they can still earn that if attendance isn't. I mean, they still
Well,
can earn it.
But
If it's an earned grade, regardless, if it's an earned grade, it's an earned grade.
but we're talking about a D- being a 0 is what we're talking about right now. And,
So,
and
yeah, the
that's
focus is here is what letter grade gets a credit at Monroe Public Schools. So right now, D- and higher gets a letter grade at Monroe Public Schools. So that's where the focus is at, is do we leave, that's your conversation, is do we leave D- as the marker, or is there that conversation like, no, we want to try and raise the bar, and we would like that to be higher. And so that's why this has been out here.
I don't think we're at the point to where we can raise the bar. We're just trying to graduate kids at this point, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, what's the average grade of GPA of our senior class?
I bet he's got it.
You don't get it.
I mean, I'd like to,
I bet he's got it.
somewhere.
That
I have
was
a
information we
distribution
had
for you.
requested,
He's
so
got
you
it.
might not
I
have
think
it.
you have to be a little careful because some of them get significantly higher grades if they take the early middle college
No, they don't.
classes.
They don't. They're on a 4-point scale.
Everything's on 4.
No,
EMC students are on a 4-point scale for their college classes.
and how many of the F grades
You only get a higher.
would have been CAs if they could have gotten a
okay, 'cause
60%?
I know some of those kids have grade GPAs above 4.
Only if you're.
I didn't hear the question. I didn't hear the question.
How many of the F grades would have been CAs if they could have gotten 60%?
I didn't know what you said. So how many of those kids were close, probably within 5 percentage points
Correct.
of,
We're just trying to get kids to attend
Yep.
and pass,
That's it.
get grades.
Yep.
So I don't see how we can work on raising the bar at this point.
I agree.
Particularly if you're talking 252 seniors got at least one D- out of about 350, 375 total seniors. That's a pretty high percentage.
Only 23% of the 63% had one. So while that number is high, maybe like sometimes students do learn from, they got the butt chewing when they got home for that
Yeah, but
D-.
23% is
you know?
60-some 3% is a third, which is still close to the same number of percentage. So if you're doing a percentage of the 60-some, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A third
Yeah.
is a third, however you could look at it, it's still 20-some percent.
Yeah, it's
Of the
70-ish,
total.
70-ish students.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That mental math was working.
75.
so I appreciate that part, because we were requested to have that conversation by the board members here about that letter grade point. So based on what I'm hearing, we'll leave that alone. And so if you're looking at number 2, what we brought back to you is the CA conversation on February 10th. Any other points on the GPA letter grade and how students get a credit? Missed anything there? Wonderful. So our next item is true. Oh,
On GPA, at the meeting on Monday, you requested data on what is the breakdown of the GPA categories by GPA. because we were looking at, remember what the
Yep.
question was?
I could
Yeah.
rattle those off to you, and then we could put them in board briefs.
Okay.
Andrea calculated these today. There were four.
you.
Yep. No. Thank you, Andrea. There were 4 students with a 0 to 0.99 GPA. There were 26 seniors with a 1.0 to 1.49. There were 43 seniors with a 1.5 to 1.99. There were 35 seniors with a 2.0 to a 2.49. There were 38 seniors with a 2.5 to a 2.99. There were 62 seniors with a 3.0 to a 3.49. There were 69 seniors to a 3.5 to a 3.99. And there were 18 seniors above a 4.0. And that's just for Monroe High. We've got breakdowns of the other buildings that we can include in board briefs, virtual and Orchard. Yes. Thank you, Andrea.
Yes, that's interesting. And I'm not going to take us back into that conversation, but it's interesting. If those are the GPAs, how the CAs play into those GPAs. It's kind of interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
They would be higher, correct? Right?
Well, the GPA,
They would at least be higher. They wouldn't be any lower.
Let's not make that conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair.
I just said, I'm not going into that.
Yeah.
So,
I took it. I took the bait.
Quiet right now.
so our next item is the truancy discussion. So I've asked Terry to kind of go over, and so we're going to just answer questions on the truancy side. And what she's going to share, and this will also then be pushed into your board briefs this week, is we're going to talk about like each building, like sharing numbers. Okay, so at each building of what phase we have students in. So Terry?
Yeah, so at a previous board meeting or board workshop meeting, we talked at great length about what we do as a district at each different level of attendance for students. And then following that, I know a number of you had the opportunity to go to a meeting with other Board of Educations throughout the county and meet with the prosecutor to learn more about what it looks like on that side of things. One of the things that we're working on is being able to provide you with data by building in terms of how many students at each grade level have received the 8-day attendance letter, the 15-day attendance letter, the AIP process, the final attempt letter, and then the prosecutor packet that goes on for referral. We, because of all the snow days and everything, our teams have not had the ability to wrap all of that data up, and we want to make sure when we give it to you that it's accurate. So we will definitely have that for you in board briefs by the end of this week. So we do apologize that we don't have that for you right now. But
You
I
couldn't
know-
control the snow.
I wish I could.
Thanks for trying, though.
I wish, or the temperature, right?
So this is just truancy. It has nothing to do with chronic absenteeism. I know we separated those two last time. I just want to make sure we're still keeping those separate.
Yes, we were
Okay.
terming that truancy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, because truancy deals with the unexcused absence part of the work that we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Terry, just off the top of your head, maybe we'll see it in the data. Is the truancy kind of family orientated? So if there's like 2 or 3 students from a family, is truancy like in all 3, or is it, could it be just one of the 3?
So I think it's very contextual to each family. I would say oftentimes there is a pattern of truancy within siblings. Sometimes though, one sibling may have health conditions, like a couple of students come to mind as we're speaking, because we've been trying to help them get homebound services because of the extensiveness of their illness and them not being able to be at school. So like I said, I think it's really contextual based on students, but we do notice trends for sure among siblings, especially some of us who have been around for a while and who have seen multiple siblings come through the system. Yeah.
I've been told that.
So because the last conversation is correlated currently with this conversation, would it behoove us to not have that on the agenda until we have this conversation, because they play side by side because they're joined right now. So because they're joined right now, I don't want to make a decision without all the information. And this plays into that because they're connected.
Regarding
You
a
know what I mean?
CA,
I'm sorry.
regarding the CA, that
Yeah,
decision?
because the suggestion is, right now, it's separating CA from attendance. And because truancy is a big, what connects these two together, I don't want to make a decision when I don't have all of what you all are providing and a conversation amongst board members, unless you suggest we do that at the board meeting during that time. Because they are connected.
They are connected. My personal opinion is that you could go ahead and think about a decision around the CA. I think the CA is a system. It's a structure with which we can balance students coming to school to learn. It provides attendance boundaries, so to speak, for students, so that, like they know that there's that number of 9 absences, and at 10, there's going to be some consequences in play. You are correct, though, Darla, in that, like, the whole excused, unexcused dilemma, like it's hard to unravel. But I think we talked about this when we were talking about the attendance policy, that we have an unexcused absence includes if the student is homesick and the parent calls and says, my student took a COVID test, they're positive, I'm keeping them home from school. So they miss 8 days of school. Those are 8 unexcused absences. Maybe the family didn't have the money to go to the doctor. They didn't have the ability to take off work to be able to get their child to the doctor, as opposed to if they would have had a doctor's note, those would have been excused absences. So everything is very contextual. So yes, everything is so interwoven. I agree with you that like one conversation can't really happen without the other. But in terms of a process or a system for what we do for the issuance of grades, I would think you could go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Terry?
Gotten a couple messages that it's been hard to hear on the live stream. So if we could talk a little louder into the mics, that would help.
Did that include me, Jamie?
I don't know. I came in
Okay.
before
You all are very hard to hear on the mics because you keep your mics up so high. I noticed that at the last
Okay.
time I watched one. It's just true.
Terry, we heard a lot from Steve and James about how they make the home visits. Is that similar at the elementary level? Is it that
Absolutely.
body building by the principal of each building?
Absolutely. So we have a policy where 2 people need to go and do a home visit together. Oftentimes that can be the liaison officer, an administrator. It might be an administrator and a social worker, depending on who's available in the building. But yes, administrators at all levels are very involved with those home visits.
It's my understanding that SROs are very involved in those home visits as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of the expectations from the prosecuting attorney, is that we can't just say, okay, David, since I'm going to just hop on that side right there, has this many absences, so we've done nothing and send it straight to them. We have to show a plan. We have to show that we've been intervening. And so.
Well, we
going
do
to
have
visits.
that. You all have that.
Right.
Because we have it written, yeah,
Yeah.
you all have
So we
that,
follow-
you do that.
So we follow
yeah.
that.
I have no doubts in my mind y'all are doing that, just so you know.
Yeah, it's escalating
At
process.
the elementary level, we also think of them as wellness checks because students are, little, and we need to make sure that they're safe. So if we don't have someone answering the phone or the numbers that we've been given, we're not able to reach an adult that's responsible for a child, we will do a home visit.
Yeah, I'm confident you're doing all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we look at this truancy discussion, is there anything particular that you were looking for or need, or was there something that was trying to make that would become more actionable? Or is it just an understanding of what Monroe Public Schools does and what our numbers really begin to look like as a child or students move through our system?
I think the conversation, and if I look back at it, was just because we brought up, we have such an attendance problem. We kept hearing that attendance were causing the grade problem because when the grades weren't improving, it was all related to attendance. So, okay, if attendance is causing the decrease or the not increase in grades, and I think that's when we found out that truancy and chronic absenteeism, or at least I did, and educated all of that. So I think that was the main reason for the entire conversation was if we have a big attendance problem and attendance is hurting the grades, then, what do we need to look at?
Students not being in school, especially elementary level, hurts.
Yeah, we
Without a doubt.
agree.
Okay, so if there's nothing else on that,
Is that what everybody else thought?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty much covers it.
thank you. And then we did have a board member request that we bring up student retention, and so I believe, I don't want to speak, I would like to have, I know Terry has information on student retention and what we already currently do, what that looks like in our school district, so I'm going to have Terry kind of go over that, and then that will open that up for that discussion.
Sure. So we have administrative guidelines that our administrators use to follow a process for the possible retention of a student. So if it's okay with the board, I would like to just go ahead and read to you what that is, and then tell you some of the factors that we use to consider whether or not we're going to retain a student or provide parents with the opportunity to have their child retained. So we have it broken down in a timeline that reflects a school year. So our first thing is like between October and January that the teacher is informing the parents of the student's progress. So that's pretty typical, whether it's report cards, it's parent-teacher conferences, but any type of struggle that a student is facing academically, that needs to be communicated to the family. Also during that time, if it's a student that has a severe challenge with their learning, that building is also going to refer them to what's called the SAT team. That's our student achievement team, and each building has one of those teams. And so that student would become part of conversations where interventions are planned for them, so that hopefully whatever it is that the academic challenges that the student is facing, we can help them to overcome that. In early March, the teacher will notify the principal that retention is being considered. And again, that SAT team would be part of that conversation. In early April, if retention is still being considered, the parents would be notified at this time and a commitment to that decision would be secured. And then in May and June, that decision of retention is finalized, and for us, that finalization occurs with a form that is signed by the school and the parent. That goes to my office. It goes to Kim Jones, who is our pupil accounting person, because she has to then mark that student back into the prior grade. It's a copy that is filed in the student CA 60. And it's also important to note that the parent does have the final say in whether or not their child is retained.
Is that by law?
That's how we've done it in Monroe Public Schools.
I just didn't know if it was a law or just a process.
That's just part of our practice,
Okay.
that we allow the family to have that
The
decision.
discussion with the parent, if the teacher's pretty adamant that the student is not qualified to go to the next grade, but the parent is adamant they should move ahead, how is that resolved?
A lot of conversation. Oftentimes, we are able to help families to understand the need for that. Sometimes what we'll also do is, we'll kind of put the decision on hold in June, and we will say, we need your child to attend summer learning. And then at the end of summer learning, we will reassess them and see where they're at and, share that information again with the family. Another option that we have as a school is if we recommend a student for retention and the family is not in agreement with that, instead of promoting a student to say from kindergarten to first grade, we can place a child in first grade. And then that refusal letter of the parent to have the student retained becomes a part of that student's permanent record.
Because with the data, the iReady, particularly third trimester data that was shown, I mean, there's some significant number of students who are 2 grades or more below proficiency, which if we're promoting all those students, then it becomes more and more difficult for them.
I would say retention is a very complicated, complex, and messy.
Nobody wants it, but
How many kids did we retain last year? Ballpark?
Yeah, so one thing if you were to look at our retention numbers, there's something that is helpful for you to know. So young 5 students are all considered to be retained when they move to kindergarten. So our system doesn't allow for us to designate between young 5 and kindergarten. So they just do kindergarten again in our system. But last year we retained 3 kindergarten students and 1 first grade student at the elementary level.
Can I ask a quick question? So when we, like at discipline hearings, we get the packet that shows where students have been enrolled in the school district. Would the designation difference of placed versus promoted, would that be documented in PowerSchool, or is that not documented there?
It is documented, but I don't know that that is information that's given to you in a board packet.
We'll double check that because I remember when we looked down through each grade level, it says, okay, what building they went to, it says promoted. So we'll double check that for you.
Okay, yeah, I
I don't
don't
remember
remember, like, we do have it in PowerSchool.
Promoted a lot of the time, so now I'm trying to think back if it ever said placed instead of promoted.
I will admit, I never would have picked that up if it wasn't.
Detail oriented.
Yeah.
Terry, you've run into a circumstance where if you decide that a student has to be retained, if the parent decides to then just take the student out of Monroe Public Schools and put them in another school, does that carry with them that they can't move on? Or do the other school have the freedom to place them in the next grade?
So oftentimes when a parent registers their student for school, the parent will tell us what grade it is that their child will be going into. And then we double check with their birth certificate to make sure that's an age appropriate placement for the student. So if the parent did not disclose that to the school, there's a possibility the school would not know that.
And there are times that if a student leaves Monroe Public and goes to another district, that district may end up calling the building that they left or they'll go through the CA-60 and they can actually see through the materials, I can see in here that you were promoted or that you were placed. And it's in the schools, if you see the word placed, that student was recommended for retention.
Because we do see that in the discipline hearings where students have left and come back. And just didn't know if we have retained that, I guess, the steps, or if they,
Anybody
reduce
got
that.
Anybody else got something before I go? Just putting it out there.
Go ahead.
So, we all put a lot of thought in these things, and you think about it and you play stuff over, and you talk to people. And I'm with Tom. One of those things that kept popping in my head was the increase of the red and the dark reds as kids progressed through our system. And then I thought back to the 3rd grade reading law, and the intent, tell me if I'm wrong, was to ensure that students are reading at a certain level before they moved on.
Correct.
So that law got undone, and there's no longer that requirement there. We understand that when kids get older, the retention of them can be detrimental to some of their other well-beings besides an academic well-being. I think we can understand that. But in the younger grades, those lines are a little more blurred because the difference between a third, a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old can be not as dramatic as they are. I think probably once you get after 4th grade. Because our policy is what you just explained, would it behoove us to look into it? I'm suggesting to look into a retention policy at those early grades. I think that I had one parent tell me that they felt that their child didn't get the kindergarten foundation and they never recovered from it. And I think that's a very real point. Because if you miss something there, so my idea, my thought that I'm throwing out there is look at the retention in the early grades prior to fourth grade. See what that would look like, see how that would be, and see if that's something that we can get that foundation. Because I do believe that when kids get a foundation, like if I'm in ninth grade and I'm only able to do at a whatever the iReady says, sixth grade or something like that, I'm probably not going to want to sit in a ninth grade class with students that knew what was going on more than me or able to understand more than me. So it's an idea that I'm throwing out there, just to have y'all look at it.
No, I think that makes sense because as we've been focused on is that trying to have the best teachers in grades 1 through 3 so the kids really have that foundation early on, because if they fall behind in 1 through 3, then it's very difficult for them to catch up.
That was just my
Yeah.
brain.
Is
count
there,
view.
is there something that we could help with providing or
So what I'm going to,
information?
I'm giving you my idea
Okay,
in a thought that if there is anything there that you all can come up with to say, maybe that's something to help, because I agree with whoever made the statement. We're all here for the same reason. We all want the grades to get better. We want these kids to excel. We want Monroe Public Schools to be the best of the best. I mean, that's why we all ran. That's why we sit here. That's why you all do your job. So this is just another one of those things to look at when we go through the data that red's increasing rapidly at a very young grade.
yeah. Just a couple of things that we consider when we are working through those conversations with families. So if a student, there are certain factors that we know that it might not be appropriate to retain a student. For example, if a student has an IEP and they are a special education student,
Right.
holding a student back because they have a cognitive learning disability, that extra year is not going to be an intervention.
Obviously,
is-
it's not all students.
Right.
I'm just saying if you all could look at it and come up with maybe pros and cons of it and see what it would look like. I'm not suggesting we have an answer now. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure.
Yeah. But I wouldn't suggest that a student that has those kinds are the students we're
Sure.
talking about.
Terry,
Gotcha.
maybe something that would be helpful is how many of those SAT team students go forward towards retention? Because I know that you have many, many SAT team meetings for many, many students that are never considered for retention down the road. So maybe that would help answer that question as well.
Sure.
It's good data.
Are your 3 or 4 students that were retained this year, the kindergarten and first grade students, were any of them for social development rather than academic? I know my oldest, we held him back in kindergarten because he was very anxious about transitions, and he was lucky enough to have Mrs. Joseph in first grade, but they didn't have young fives back then, so he did kindergarten twice. He would have been one of those fall birthdays.
But that's a good point.
It just seems, segueing on what Tom was saying, it's inherently sad when we see the iReady and these kids are 2 or 3 years behind. And it seems like they go to the next grade, they're already way behind. And then the truancy, the absenteeism pops up. Why would I want to sit in a class with a bunch of people that are smarter than me, that understand things? I don't want to be there. I'm getting out of here. It seems like we're really doing these kids a disservice, letting them go on. And it might be along the lines like Darla was talking, maybe at the earlier grades, instead of letting the parents override the decision of the administration and the teachers, hold these kids back. If there's not an IEP or something, but just for academic reasons.
Not punitive, to give them that skill set.
Exactly.
So that foundation, because we know whatever you build, it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't have that core strong foundation, everything above you is just going to be crumbling and dropping as it goes. And there are some students that can overcome that. We understand that. And there are some students that are not going to be able to come that. We understand that. But I think that is this population, and I'm looking at everybody in here.
So just for devil's advocate, y'all, there's lots of educational research out there that talks about the values of social promotion, which means that instead of retaining a student for whatever reasons, that they are promoted with their peer group. So like what Brian was talking about earlier about how important it is for students to have those deep connections with their classmates, with peers that have a positive influence. That's part of the reason why that research shows what it shows. Now, it is not 100% social promotion is the way to go, but I am saying that there's also information out there that shows that retention might be not necessarily the best route in all cases for some educational research.
And that's why I think I polled my wife tonight and I said, how do you feel about retention before I came? And I think we agreed upon K through second grade would be ideal. K through 4 is kind of stretching it. Back to what Mary said, I think that our peer-to-peer connections are much more intense when we get above second grade. They're a little more, maybe first and second grade, a little more juvenile in nature. But as you get older, it becomes more serious. So I would think that K through second is the ideal time to do that. So you kind of know if someone hits second grade and they're reading at a pre-kindergarten level or whatever it may be, whatever proficiency we're talking about, that it might become a little more of a, I hate to use the word mandating someone to be
Yes.
retained, but I think there has to be a little more, maybe a little harder look. But and I'm not saying you guys haven't done that before. I'm just
Yeah,
saying it.
and we would agree with your wife that K2 would be that age span if a retention were to occur, that's when it would occur. And it's like I said, it's complicated, it's controversial, it's messy. There's a lot of research out there also, and I have seen in my own personal experience that when you retain a child, we've referred to it as the honeymoon year, where the year that they repeat that same grade, they do extremely well. The next year, they might also do extremely well. But there's also then research that shows within 3 to 5 years that those students fall back to being in the bottom percentage of students where, they're then, I guess, their new cohort. And there's also a lot of research around, and I found numbers from like 5 to 11 times more the chance of them dropping out. Because, if they're a young 5 student who's already a year ahead when they go to kindergarten and then we retain them a year, they could be 20. And do we want 20-year-olds in our high school with our 14-year-old ninth grade students? So when I don't know any other word other than it's a very complicated conversation to have. There's a lot of pros and cons, and there's a lot to think through. And I think just like, with our CA conversations, like we have to take each student's situation individually. Like Carrie's son, it worked for. He's an incredible young man with a brilliant future. So, for some kids it does work, but
Can I ask, sorry.
ahead.
Can I ask another question? So the concept of retention can be scary for a lot of families, parents, guardians. So I'm curious if other models that would achieve similar results have been explored. So somebody at this board table may have gone through something called extended time, which was after kindergarten but before first grade. So did I get retained? Technically, no. I just got to go through an extra year of school Wow, how lucky. But it didn't use the word retention. It didn't use the word repeat. It didn't use the word do-over, whatever. So I'm curious if because of stigma of being retained is causing some parents to say no. And I'm curious if there's other models in other school districts in our area or school districts that are comparable to Monroe when it comes to demographics, like around the state, around the country. If there's other models that would achieve similar results without necessarily retaining students for repeating a year.
So I liken it to this for you. We'll bring this back, and I'm looking right now at that May 11th date, and gathering the pros and cons, gathering together, because I think when we start really diving into it, is that we have materials that Andrea's working on right now. I hope not right this very moment, but I know I saw her earlier today working on it, on the cohort data. And if we really start to look back at where we're at now, because we just changed our literacy materials, we're making these substantial changes, what would this all look like? So give us that opportunity right here to bring up the pros and cons, get these questions, and then we can come right back in there at that time and go over that, because we'll have some more data to look at. Carrie, to your point, yes, through their SAT meetings, they do have lots of conversations. I'm anticipating that Terry, and because I know she's pushed their communication out to our administrators right now, on make sure that they stay way in front of this. And so, how many students are they already having conversations around what's going on in the whys? I think that'd be very helpful for you as we analyze this. So we can make that part very much happen right there. From a K-2 world, that is the best, most ideal time. But remember, I think we have 80 kids roughly that are in our Wi-Fi program. And, 60.
Sounds right off the top of my head. I think there's 5,
Yeah, so it's right about that.
6, 7-ish classrooms.
Yeah, so I think it's right around that 80 to 90 students. So if you think about it for kids already, a group of 300 students, almost a third of those kids have already done kindergarten twice in our system, okay?
There is that gap of students.
Oh, there is.
I know people that fell in that gap.
Yep. So that's a piece of data that we
got
think
that.
about there too. And I understand that there is a place for retention and how wording it differently, but there is a place for it. And it can work, but it takes the right makeup of a situation. And it worked for your child because you were actively involved. Everyone was actively involved in making it very successful.
I think the good thing that I like going on is that the board is thinking about options. We're looking at things. We're trying to come up with ideas. We set policy, you decide how to do it. So we say, okay, we've listened to you. This is how we're going to put out our level. And then how you guys implement that is how you implement it. And then we reevaluate for results. And
Sure.
that's just,
Yep, greatly appreciated.
And that young man had almost a full ride for at least half of his college career. So we were very proud of that.
had or has.
Had.
Had.
That was Jacob, my
Oh, I
oldest.
thought you were talking about, I
That
thought you were
is
talking
one.
about.
At U of M, if I remember correctly. Michigan State, okay.
Even better.
I was hoping.
By the way, could you have made a worse decision on when you rescheduled Winterfest? That is the Michigan State game at 8 p.m. on Fox. Just saying.
Guess what? Wasn't my recommendation.
You could have killed it then.
No, there's still a whole lot of week left in front of us, and I know I feel bad for a lot of kids right now this coming week there. So that's all we have for our Board of Education tonight.
Well, I want to ask one more thing. Because of the amount of time off school and in the conversation we've just had, how many days have the kids missed?
So the students right now have missed 5 days.
5 days.
We're allotted 6. We then can also request from the state 3 more additional days.
Well, what I was thinking of, so while they're off, I remember how the system is set up that the kids can go online during, so is there any way that
So
you could do something in the
state did away
future?
with virtual days this year.
They won't let you use online anything?
Nope.
I was just thinking about, not to count for a school day, but just so the kids could get on and do homework and be on the work and do it.
Yeah, they still have opportunities.
You can still do that
If I may.
if the teachers have stuff loaded, right?
I do have 2 elementary and 1 middle school student, and they can access, if they've got their little barcode doodad, which most of the elementary teachers put that somewhere in one of those folders they send home. They can access Clever, which gives them access to iReady, to Prodigy Math, to all the other things our lovely tech department puts on Clever for the kids to get into. So they have access to things, and like my middle schooler can get on Google Classroom from her Chromebook and that. So they can, we just can't count it as instructional time.
Can you send out reminders through the teachers to say, hey, there's stuff loaded up in whatever, what's that called, Clever? There's stuff loaded up in there, there's iReady stuff to do. Can they do that? Like to say, hey, there's stuff to do? Who are we looking at?
Terry.
Oh.
I know, Terry always
Like
knows
who?
this, because that's back at a building
I'm
level.
it was just a suggestion because of so many days, and we got a lot of cold days coming up.
Yeah,
Really cold
there's-
days coming up.
This week.
Yeah.
So if I,
Oh, go ahead.
the platforms that are out there, I don't think, like at the elementary level, the teachers don't necessarily have to load stuff on there. It's just there for the students. Now, the secondary level, where they're using Google Classroom and other platforms, that's something that the teachers would have to put things out there. But I don't know what the teachery rules are about asking them to do things.
She was watching.
She heard.
So the answer is that yes, things like iReady and platforms such as that students can access at any time. That is like a global thing that we could say in Monroe Public Schools, any student could access from any device. Whether or not this teacher has things in Google Classroom or, some teachers do provide kids with little things to read and math games and, that type of thing. That I don't think is consistent from classroom to classroom.
How about at your grades?
I think
Just so they can have an opportunity, like, there's a lot of work that's gonna need.
the technology and it is there. They
But
have.
you don't put anything out to say, hey, you can
I
answer, you don't
think,
know.
no, I mean, I don't think
You ladies
that, it's like when you have a substitute, a lot of times you're going, because you are the subject matter expert and you could probably give a little pieces, but when that phone call comes there,
A
shutting it
classroom,
down.
a content area teacher or a classroom, the individual teachers, they may take and make that happen. And so.
I just thought
Back to
about
the
it.
principals and making that encouragement, hey, push something out, all these days.
5 days is a lot. When we're talking about
Oh.
all our entire conversation of 10 days in
Yep.
an entire year, we
Nope,
just missed
just
5. so-
agree.
And there's probably more coming.
Yeah,
Anyway, it was just a thought.
that's it, sir.
Okay. Brian, I don't think we have any public commentary, but very good. I guess,
When is Andrea, you said she was putting together that more
You're gonna have
information?
that board briefs next week, and then we're looking at trying to figure out how to get that into that ninth or 10th time for you.
That would be the time to do the,
No, no,
she's
no.
working
No,
on it.
this is
It's
student
cohort
data.
Cohort.
That was
Right,
requested.
but we're looking at 210 for a board decision on the CAs.
So the CAs.
this
Yeah.
is just student
Well,
data.
I'm saying.
well, it's going to be a new business, yeah.
It's gonna be a new
Business.
business
Uh,
decision.
February
on
10th.
CNA, but
Yeah.
Right, we don't have to vote on
We
it.
don't have to, but we
It's
want
on-
to. we will.
Yeah.
It's
a
a new
potential.
business on the agenda that night.
Yeah.
Okay, before we adjourn, I just want to have one little piece of information, which I sent to Andy, my experience in babysitting the last 4 days. Is one of the one girl was in first grade. There was a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a set of 3-year-old twins, which was fun.
You're
But
still
this-
alive. It's amazing.
The 7-year-old, interesting enough, I was looking at her schoolwork. And they're using HMH into reading and the same stuff that we just approved, our schools are using as well. And this is in Golden, Colorado, so out of state, pretty high demographic, certainly much different than Monroe, but it was interesting to see they're using the same materials that we just approved. So, just a comment.
Could be.
Okay, can we get, that really concludes our agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Have support?
Support.
Show of hands? Thank you. And that concludes, the Monroe Public Schools Board of Education work session for Monday, January 26, 2026 is adjourned, and the time is 7:40. Thank you, everybody.